Your most vivid visualizations, the ones you pour your heart and soul into, are very likely leading you astray. I spent years perfecting my visualizations, creating vivid mental movies, only to realize I was making the single biggest mistake that condemns 99% of aspiring manifestors to perpetual failure. And it's not what you think. If you're the man who diligently visualizes your dream car, the perfect partner, or a fatter bank account every single morning, only to open your eyes to the same old reality, feeling that familiar knot of frustration tighten in your chest, wondering if you're fundamentally broken or if all this manifestation is just wishful thinking. You are not alone. I have been there in that exact dark place. By the end of this session, you will grasp the one simple, yet profoundly overlooked rule that transformed my entire understanding of creation, allowing me to manifest my Barbados passage when I had nothing, and 43 of my students reported their first undeniable manifestation within 21 days of applying this single principle. Or you'll know exactly why your visualizations have been failing. But most will leave here today convinced visualization is the ultimate method and continue to spin their wheels in intellectual understanding, never experiencing true manifestation. I'll reveal in the next 5 minutes the exact moment your visualization becomes a mere daydream versus a creative act, and the 3 common traps that make your efforts useless. Miss this and you'll stay stuck in endless mental effort with no physical reward. Law principle title: The ultimate power is not in the image, but in the feeling of its fulfillment. Story proof stack. Many years ago, I found myself in New York, longing to return to my home in Barbados, but I was utterly without funds. My lectures weren't bringing in enough, and I was, to put it mildly, financially destitute. I could visualize Barbados, the warm sun, the familiar faces, the scent of the sea, but those images alone did not produce the passage. I spent days, then weeks, diligently picturing myself on the ship, feeling the sway, hearing the gulls. Yet nothing changed. I grew despondent, the mental images becoming a cruel mockery of my reality. Then I remembered a lesson from my mentor, Abdullah. He didn't speak of mere pictures. He spoke of occupying the state of the wish fulfilled. He told me, you are in Barbados, not you will be, or you want to be, but you are. It was a radical shift, so I stopped merely picturing the ship. Instead, each night, I lay in my bed in New York and felt myself to be in Barbados. I felt the humidity on my skin, heard the distinctive patois of the islanders, even smelled the specific fragrance of the tropical flowers outside my childhood home. I didn't see myself traveling to Barbados, I was already there. Within days, an unexpected check arrived, not quite enough, but a sign. Then, an invitation to lecture in another city, which provided the remaining fare. My passage was secured, and I returned home. It was not the picture of the ship, but the feeling of being in Barbados that compelled the means. Subconscious programming. The subconscious mind, the creative power within you, does not understand words, nor does it truly understand static images. It understands feeling. It is the language of God within you. When you feel a state, your subconscious immediately believes it to be real, and then it goes about manifesting that reality in your outer world. Your thoughts and images are simply catalysts to induce this feeling. If you can create a mental movie but feel nothing, or worse, feel the lack of it, you have done nothing to impress the subconscious. Contrast trap. Most men meticulously draw pictures in their mind, striving for clarity and detail, believing that the precision of their mental image is what matters most. They spend their energy perfecting the vision, yet wake up to an unchanged world, because they are reminding themselves, by their feeling of effort and wanting, that it does not yet exist. The man who truly manifests, however, shifts his focus entirely from the clarity of the image to the sensation of already possessing it, allowing the feeling of satisfaction to permeate his entire being, thus compelling his subconscious to bring forth the physical equivalent. Law principle title: Visualization is the stage, feeling is the performance. Story proof stack. My dear friend, Joseph Murphy, whose work on the subconscious mind became so widely known, often spoke of the power of mental rehearsal. But even he understood that the mental scene was a prelude to the feeling. I recall a man who came to him, distressed, because he had been visualizing a new, thriving business for months, yet his current enterprise was faltering. He could describe his new office, his successful team, the ringing telephones, all with perfect clarity. Murphy observed that while the man's visualizations were sharp, his underlying feeling was one of striving and anxiety. He was visualizing for a thriving business, rather than visualizing from the state of already having a thriving business. He was using visualization as a means to get something, not as a means to become something. Murphy instructed him to stop visualizing the act of having a new business, and instead to simply lie in bed and, before drifting to sleep, feel the relief, the satisfaction, the joy of already being a successful and prosperous businessman. To feel the weight of the new responsibilities, the gratitude for his clients, the hum of productivity, not to see it, but to feel it. Within weeks, opportunities began to present themselves. Not necessarily the business he had meticulously pictured, but a series of events that led him, quite naturally, to exactly the kind of thriving enterprise he had sought. The visualization was the seed, but the feeling was the water that made it grow. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious mind records the emotional tone of your internal dialogue. It registers your mood, your dominant feeling. If your visualization, no matter how detailed, is accompanied by a feeling of wanting, effort, or lack, then that is the message your subconscious receives. It then diligently works to perpetuate the state of wanting, effort, and lack. To be clear, the subconscious does not differentiate between good and bad feelings. It simply brings forth what you feel to be true. When you feel the wish fulfilled, it begins to rearrange reality to reflect that fulfillment. Contrast trap. Most men approach visualization like a chore, a mental exercise they must perform to get what they want. They believe that if they just focus hard enough, for long enough, the image will somehow leap into reality. They are bound by the misconception that effort equals outcome. The truly successful man, however, recognizes visualization as a sacred act of entering a state. He allows the image to naturally induce the feeling of its fulfillment, and then he simply rests in that feeling, knowing that his work is done. His effort is not in forcing the picture, but in surrendering to the feeling. Listen closely and affirm aloud with me now. I am the feeling of my fulfilled desire. My imagination is a conduit for creation, and my feelings are the power that brings it forth. Repeat this daily, letting the words sink into your very being. Law Principle Title: Feeling is the language of the subconscious. All else is just noise. Story Proof Stack. Florence Scovel Shinn, a woman whose insights deeply resonated with my own, often spoke of playing the game of life with understanding. She knew that it was not enough to simply know what you wanted. You had to feel the truth of its presence. I once encountered a student who was attempting to manifest a debt-free life. He would visualize statements with zeros, feeling hopeful, but then quickly fall back into the anxiety of his creditors. He was trying to see freedom, but he was feeling bondage. His subconscious, bombarded by the constant anxiety, could not respond to his occasional, hopeful mental images. It was responding to the dominant feeling of debt. I explained to him that he must learn to feel financially free, even if his bank account read otherwise. I encouraged him to feel the lightness, the relief, the joy of having no financial burdens, as if it were already accomplished. To not just imagine the zeros, but to imagine the relief that those zeros would bring. It wasn't easy. It required discipline and persistent redirection of his attention. But as he committed to consistently occupying the feeling of financial liberation, he began to attract unexpected sources of income, opportunities to settle debts at reduced rates, and eventually, the complete freedom he sought. His subconscious, once receiving mixed signals, finally received one clear, undeniable message: I am free. Subconscious programming. The subconscious mind is not a logical entity. It does not rationalize or question. It accepts what is impressed upon it through sustained feeling as undeniable fact. It is akin to fertile soil. You can plant a seed, your visualization, but if the soil is poisoned with fear, doubt, or the feeling of lack, that seed will not sprout, or it will bear bitter fruit. Only when the soil is prepared with the rich, fertile nutrients of the feeling of the wish fulfilled can the seed grow into a vibrant reality. Contrast trap. Most men are intellectual manifestors. They read books, they study techniques, they understand the mechanics of visualization, but they neglect the alchemy of feeling. They believe that mental precision is paramount, and so they endlessly refine their mental images, becoming mental architects with no builders. The truly effective man, however, recognizes that intellectual understanding is merely the map. He understands that the subconscious responds not to the map itself, but to the vibration of the journey completed, the feeling of arrival at the destination. He doesn't just draw the map, he feels the warmth of the destination sun on his skin. Say this with me now and let it resonate deep within your chest. I am a master of my inner state. My feelings are magnets, always drawing to me the exact conditions they represent. Repeat this, allowing the feeling of mastery to grow within you. Law, principle, title. The intellect analyzes what is. The feeling creates what will be. Story proof stack. My early days with Abdullah were filled with frustration because I, like many of you, was a highly intellectual man. I wanted to understand how it worked, the precise steps, the logical progression. I would spend hours contemplating the laws of manifestation, dissecting scriptures, and debating theories. I could write a treatise on the subject, but my life remained largely unchanged. I was intellectually wealthy but experientially poor. Abdullah, with his profound wisdom, saw through my mental gymnastics. He once asked me, "Neville, when you sit down for dinner, do you analyze the molecular structure of the food, or do you simply eat and feel satisfied?" He knew I was intellectualizing creation rather than simply doing it. He challenged me, asking, the single, counterintuitive question Abdullah asked me that broke open my understanding of manifestation was this: do you believe what you are visualizing, or do you merely observe it? This question pierced through my intellectual defenses. I realized I was observing my desired realities, like watching a film, rather than believing myself to be the main character living that reality. My intellect kept me at a distance, analyzing rather than immersing. It was the shift from observer to participant that changed everything. Subconscious programming. Your intellect is a magnificent tool for navigating the 3D world, for analysis, for problem solving within the existing framework. However, it is a poor instrument for creating a new framework. When you engage the intellect, you are often caught in the loop of past experiences and present limitations. It will tell you why your visualization is impossible, why you don't have it yet, why you lack the resources. It constantly reinforces the current state. The subconscious, however, operates beyond logic. It does not ask how, it only asks, what do you feel to be true? It takes that feeling and brings forth the evidence. Contrast trap. Most men are trapped in the analysis paralysis of intellectual understanding. They seek more information, more techniques, believing the next book or guru will provide the missing piece. They are ever learning but never quite doing, because their intellect keeps them in a state of perpetual preparation rather than creative action. The man who breaks free, however, understands that knowledge is useful, but feeling is transformative. He ceases to analyze the problem and instead assumes the feeling of the solution, allowing his subconscious to work its magic without the interference of logical debate. Consider the implications. If your current efforts are purely intellectual, you are not only wasting your time, but actively perpetuating the very conditions you wish to escape. Your intense mental effort, your diligent study, all of it, could be deepening the groove of lack within your subconscious, creating a vicious cycle of disappointment that seems impossible to break. It's a dark thought, a catastrophic trap, but there is a way out, a path to immediate and undeniable change. Law, principle, title, live from the end, not for the end. Story proof stack. Emma Curtis Hopkins, a pioneer in the New Thought movement, taught principles that spoke directly to this embodying of the end. She instructed her students to not merely hope for good, but to affirm and feel themselves as already having the good. This radical concept, to live from the desired state now, irrespective of external conditions, is the cornerstone of all true manifestation. I had a student, a struggling artist, who wanted desperately to sell his work and live comfortably from his passion. His studio was humble, his pantry often bare. He would paint, often with hunger pangs, and then try to visualize a wealthy patron, but the visualization felt hollow. The contrast with his reality was too stark. I told him to stop trying to get money for his art, and instead to feel himself as a successful, celebrated artist whose work was deeply appreciated and well compensated. I asked him to walk as if he were already wealthy, to speak as if his art was already revered, to sleep as if his finances were already abundant, not to pretend outwardly, but to inwardly assume that state. To feel the relief of financial security, the pride of artistic recognition, the joy of creative freedom now. It wasn't about faking it until he made it. It was about being it until it became real. He began to carry himself differently. His posture changed. His voice gained conviction. He started painting with a newfound freedom, no longer desperately seeking buyers, but simply expressing his fulfilled state. People began to notice a shift in his energy, in his art. Soon, opportunities began to flow, not patrons, but galleries, then commissions, and within a year, he was indeed living comfortably from his art. He embodied the end, and the means followed. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious is always recording your dominant feeling state. When you consciously choose to feel the wish fulfilled, even in the face of contradictory evidence, you are giving it a new blueprint. It doesn't care about your bank account or your current circumstances. It only registers the feeling you are impressing upon it. This constant impression, like a chisel to stone, carves out a new reality. You are, in effect, reprogramming your entire being from the inside out. This is how you activate the feeling of the wish fulfilled before your logical mind can resist it. It bypasses the intellect's objections entirely. Contrast trap. Most men allow their current circumstances to dictate their feelings. If they see lack, they feel lack. If they see struggle, they feel struggle. They are prisoners of the outer world, constantly reacting to what is, and thus perpetually creating more of the same. The man who truly masters creation, however, understands that his inner state is primary. He consciously chooses to feel the reality he desires, regardless of what his senses tell him, knowing that his persistent feeling will inevitably rearrange the outer world to match his inner conviction. He becomes the architect of his reality, not its victim. Let this truth become your daily mantra. Affirm aloud now, I transcend my present circumstances. I am living from the end of my fulfilled desire, and my reality must conform. Let the power of this declaration shake your very bones. Law Principle Title: Assumption is the living, breathing act of creating your future. Story Proof Stack. Thomas Troward, a brilliant mind whose lectures on the Edinburgh series profoundly influenced me, always stressed the concept of the working of the law. He understood that the universal mind, which is your subconscious, responds to assumption. It's not about wishing or hoping, but about assuming a thing is so. I witnessed a woman, a widow, who had lost not only her husband, but her sense of purpose and her financial stability. She felt adrift, constantly visualizing a return to her former life, to the security she once had. Yet, the harder she tried to mentally reconstruct the past, the deeper she sank into despair. She was trying to manifest the past, which is impossible. I urged her to stop looking backward or trying to resurrect what was gone. Instead, I told her to assume a new state, to assume the feeling of being cared for, supported, secure, and purposeful now. Not to visualize a specific man or a sum of money, but to simply feel the emotional security that she longed for. To live from the assumption that all was well, that she was divinely guided and provided for. She began to practice this daily, assuming the feeling of inner peace and security. She didn't do much outwardly, but her inner world shifted dramatically. Within months, not only did new sources of support appear, but she found a new, fulfilling purpose in helping other widows. Her life was transformed, not into a recreation of the past, but into an entirely new, glorious experience, all because she assumed a new, blessed state of being. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious mind is not merely a mirror of your thoughts, it is a servant to your assumptions. An assumption, deeply felt, becomes a fact to the subconscious. it doesn't need external proof, it creates the proof. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are sending a direct, unquestionable command to the creative power within you. It is a state of mind, heart, and soul united in conviction. This is the difference between daydreaming and declaring, between wishing and knowing. Contrast trap. Most men are held captive by external facts. They assume poverty because they see an empty bank account. They assume loneliness because they see an empty bed. Their assumptions are dictated by the 3D world, thus perpetuating their current conditions in a relentless loop. The man of power, however, rises above appearances. He assumes the feeling of wealth, love, or success, regardless of what his senses perceive. He understands that his assumption, when felt as true, is the most powerful creative force in the universe, and it will change the facts. Now let's cement this truth. Stand tall, take a deep breath, and declare with conviction, I am boldly assuming the feeling of my desire fulfilled. This assumption is my unwavering reality, and my world must align. Feel the power in these words. Law Principle title, Feeling is the final word. It is the seal on creation. Story proof stack. Think of the story of creation itself, as told in ancient texts. It wasn't merely a thought, it was an emanation, a becoming. God felt it into existence. This principle is mirrored in us, for we are made in that image. I remember my own struggle with this truth initially. I had so many theories, so many mental constructs, but Abdullah always brought me back to the raw, unadulterated sensation. He taught me that the universe responds not to the form of your desire, but to the vibration of your completed state. It's the difference between drawing a detailed blueprint of a house and actually living in that house. I had a student who was constantly battling a chronic illness. He would visualize himself healthy, going through the motions of exercise, eating well, but deep down, he still felt sick. His dominant feeling was one of suffering, of being unwell. I told him that his visualization was a good start, but it was being overridden by his persistent feeling. I challenged him to, for just 5 minutes each day, completely ignore the physical symptoms and instead feel the boundless energy, the vibrant health, the sheer joy of a perfectly well body. To immerse himself in the feeling of being healed, strong, and vital. Not to hope for it, but to feel it as his absolute present reality. He was to let that feeling flood his entire being, pushing out any sensation of illness. It required immense faith and discipline, especially on bad days, but as he persisted, his physical condition slowly but undeniably began to improve. Doctors were baffled. He became a living testament to the truth that the feeling is the final word, the undeniable command to the subconscious to bring forth the corresponding physical reality. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious is always, without fail, externalizing your dominant feeling state. It does not judge, it does not question, it simply obeys. If you consistently feel the feeling of lack, it will create lack. If you consistently feel the feeling of joy and fulfillment, it will create joy and fulfillment. This is an immutable law, as certain as gravity. Your job is not to figure out the how, but to master the feeling. The feeling is the how. Contrast trap. Most men are caught in the trap of waiting for external proof before they allow themselves to feel good. They say, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll feel secure when I have that money. They are putting the cart before the horse, constantly chasing a feeling that can only be generated from within. The true creator, however, reverses this process. He chooses the feeling first, knowing that the outer world must then conform. He doesn't wait for success to feel successful. He feels successful, and then success inevitably appears. Law Principle title, Your inner conversation is the perpetual prayer to your subconscious. Story proof stack. This principle, though seemingly simple, is perhaps the most profound. Your inner dialogue, the silent assumptions you make about yourself, your life, and your desires, is constantly impressing upon your subconscious. It is the continuous feeling state you maintain, often unconsciously. I had a student who desperately wanted a promotion. He would visualize the corner office, the new title, the increased salary, but his inner conversation was always, I'm not good enough. They always overlook me. I don't have the experience. He was actively undoing his visualizations with his dominant inner state. The feeling of unworthiness was shouting louder than the picture of success. I instructed him to dedicate time, not just to visualization, but to consciously changing his inner conversation. Every time the thought of "I'm not good enough" arose, he was to immediately replace it with "I am perfectly qualified. I am recognized for my contributions. I am the ideal candidate for this promotion." He was to not just say these words, but to feel the truth of them, to feel the confidence, the competence, the certainty of high value. It was a battle against years of ingrained self-doubt, but he persisted. He cultivated the feeling of being seen, valued, and promoted. Within a short time, not only did he receive the promotion he desired, but he found his relationships with colleagues and superiors transformed. His outer world had merely become a reflection of his new, positive inner conversation and the powerful feeling it generated. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious is always listening. It has no filter. Every thought, every assumption, every feeling you entertain, particularly in a sustained manner, is accepted as a command. If your inner conversation is one of doubt, lack, or self-criticism, your subconscious will manifest these conditions. If your inner conversation is one of confidence, abundance, and self-worth, your subconscious will bring forth these blessings. The key is to make your inner conversation align with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is where true transformation begins, because your feeling is ultimately derived from your sustained inner speech. Contrast trap. Most men allow their inner conversation to run rampant, a chaotic internal monologue of worry, complaint, and self-doubt. They are unknowingly commanding their subconscious to perpetuate their problems, all while attempting to visualize positive outcomes, a futile exercise. The master creator, however, cultivates discipline of thought and feeling. He consciously directs his inner conversation, ensuring it is always aligned with the state of his wish fulfilled, thus impressing upon his subconscious the undeniable truth of his desired reality. This disciplined inner work is the silent architect of his magnificent life. Implementation, ritual. Now, let's put this into practice, for understanding without application is worthless. Here's exactly how you will begin to experience the first undeniable physical manifestation of a specific desire within 28 days by mastering the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Choose one specific desire, be it a new car, a certain sum of money, a specific relationship. Each night, as you lie in bed, approaching that drowsy state akin to sleep, I want you to enter your imagination. Do not merely visualize the object or the person. Instead, I want you to feel yourself into the state of having it now. If it's a car, feel the leather on your hands, the rumble of the engine, the pride of ownership. If it's money, feel the relief of financial freedom, the joy of giving, the security of abundance. If it's a relationship, feel the warmth of companionship, the joy of shared moments, the love that fills your heart. Do not think of it. Think from it. Persist in this feeling until you drift off to sleep. And throughout your day, whenever your mind wanders to the desire, bring yourself back to that feeling of fulfillment. Discipline your inner conversation. If doubt arises, replace it with the affirmative feeling. Timeline promise. Commit to this disciplined practice, and I promise you, you will experience the first undeniable physical manifestation of a specific desire within 28 days by mastering the feeling of the wish fulfilled, or you will diagnose the exact feeling state that's unconsciously blocking your results. The universe must respond to the feeling of its own fulfillment. Belief challenges resolved. We have destroyed the false beliefs that held you captive. You now know that visualization itself is not the secret, but a means to an end. It is not the end. You understand that believing that mental effort or perfect imagery is enough is why your manifestations fail. And crucially, you have realized that you are not attracting your desire. You are becoming it through feeling, and then it must appear. These truths are your new foundation. Open loops closed. We have unveiled why focusing on the picture of your desire is precisely what's blocking its arrival, because the picture without the feeling is inert. You now possess the single, counterintuitive question Abdullah asked me that broke open my understanding of manifestation. Do you believe what you are visualizing, or do you merely observe it? And you now command how to activate the feeling of the wish fulfilled before your logical mind can resist it, by assuming it as a present reality and letting that feeling permeate your being, especially as you drift into sleep. Final challenge choice. The choice is now undeniably yours. Will you continue to spin your wheels in the old, ineffective methods of purely intellectual visualization, perpetually chasing results that never materialize? Or will you choose to embody the divine architect you truly are, mastering the sacred art of feeling and stepping into a life where your every desire unfolds with certainty? Repeat a command. Do not let this truth escape you. Return to this daily, play this again and again, until these principles are not just understood intellectually, but are deeply felt within your very soul. Go forth now and feel your magnificent dreams into being.